I do want to start prior to. I haven't seen anybody ever ask you this. Was your first experience with any kind of entertainment was being on the Gong Show?
No,
No, it
my
wasn't.
first no, no. My that wasn't even my first paid gig. Even
Oh, okay.
first thing of entertainment was probably they used to do a talent thing on the SS Emerald, and as a kid, I think I sang there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So my first paid gig was actually that's how I got into AFTRA. A friend of mine, Brian Cummings, was doing this thing for the Buddy Holly story, and if they chose you based on your reaction to the film, and you were an AFTRA member, you got into AFTRA. I mean, if you wanted to get into AFTRA, you could get into AFTRA.
Right.
And I was so floored by the film. It was so fantastic. I guess they liked my reaction, and that was my first paid gig. I mean, in commercials.
Right. And so, how long after that was it that you started taking classes with Dawes?
I was already taking classes with Dawes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was touring with the LA Moving Van and Puppet Company
Okay.
while I was taking classes with Dawes. And I met Brian in Dawes's class. So, yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I never thought about the sequence, but yeah, that's the sequence. So, yeah.
And would you have cross paths too with Nancy Cartwright at that time?
A little later than that.
Okay.
Nancy and I think the last gig Nancy and I did together was the Canterville Ghost.
Okay.
It was before she got the gig with Tracy Ullman on Simpsons.
And were you very good friends with her, or are you still, or?
No, we don't really see each other now. I mean, we were in the beginnings of our career. We saw each other more.
Right.
She met me when I was still dating my now husband, and she was not married at that time. So, when you're younger and you have more time, you get involved in a relationship, you have children, things change. So
Right.
we knew each other more at the beginning, and we were both very supportive of each other. So,
Going in order, it says that what your first really big job in animation would have been being in Spider-Man.
that was my first. You know what? It's not even that was my first original animated series.
Right.
My first anime series was playing Harlock's niece in the Harlock
Oh yeah.
anime. Yeah, that was fun. That was fun. I met David Hall then. He was I really liked him. Such a good actor.
So you would have started. You would have started an anime pretty early on, back when it was just getting like a rival here too.
Yeah, back when people hear it, if they knew anything about it and they weren't doing it, they kind of looked down their noses at it.
Right.
I always thought it was a great medium, and because I'm a puppeteer, this movement becomes very important. So yeah, I loved it. And I just was one of those things, because I can sing and I had been doing puppets for years. It was much easier to dub. And that was back when you were looking at the code. Now when you go into dub, especially live action, you've got the words running across the screen. So it makes it much easier instead of doing, 3 things. You're just doing really 1.5.
And in terms of early in your career in the 80s, and with the original animation that you've done, do you have a particular favorite or favorites?
No, I pretty much love them all, but I really just so much love doing Fraggle Rock. God.
Oh yeah.
They went through 1,200 auditions.
Wow.
Yeah, but I love doing that character.
You already know. You already know what's best for you. Don't you have a little voice inside you?
I love Moki. She was great. And I got to work with Barbara Goodson, so that was great. And Bob Bergen. I mean, it was heaven. It was voiceover heaven.
What about with your first live action dubbing would have been the Fanny and Alexander movie.
Yeah, and that was it was challenging. It was fun, but it was very challenging. You know, there's such a different kind of approach to live action as opposed to anime.
Mm-hmm.
Difference in writing, difference in characterization, difference in direction. It was great. Love doing it.
And I know a lot of
Go
other anime people that I've talked to also do a lot of ADR for major TV and movies, and I've noticed that do you still actively do that too?
Whenever they call me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. Why not? They haven't been doing too much of that because of the pandemic.
Right.
But, you know, yeah. You know, it's like anything else. They begin to use other groups. One thing happens after another. So sure, I love doing that. I love doing all the voiceover. It's just a kick.
I did notice that the little bit of on camera that you've done when you did an episode of Who's the Boss.
I did a voiceover for Who's the Boss,
Oh.
and I wrote. In fact, I just got a very small check for a show that I co-wrote, and I do mean small, but yeah. I never seemed to work on camera, and then it got to be that you had to wait around for so long, and there was so much competition, and I would rather be doing voiceover.
Right.
I'm not limited by what this looks like. So now, of course, you've got stars doing a lot of our work. So there you go.
Right.
So I'm having to create my own series, which is what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Yeah. With me specifically, the actual probably first thing that instilled your voice in my head was the Dot Hack series.
Yeah, good series, wonderful character. And I remember thinking I didn't really quite know what a game was.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the director explaining to me, "Oh, well, see, there will be different endings. There will be different ways that this can turn out." And I thought, "Oh, that's really clever. I like that." So yeah, and of course, animation for games is. You think about Dot Hack, and you think about like Moons of Madness, which I did not too long ago. It's like the difference in animations, but the difference in the whole industry.
Right.
Because back when we were doing Dot Hack, I'm not even sure we were using Pro Tools.
Oh.
So those engineers were just fabulous. And now I do a lot of live action stuff for Netflix, and it's just amazing what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
And they've gotten very smart. It used to be that if you listen to the ambient sound of, say, the original language was French, the ambient sound would sound a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow they figured out that if the ambient sound was the same for when you dubbed as when you did the original, it would become seamless. And that's what's happening. It's really quite marvelous.
Mm-hmm. And with playing Kite, was your approach to playing him any different than how you approach other boys that you voiced in anime?
Well, always knowing, kind of who that character is. So, I rely, because you don't get a whole script.
Right.
You get pieces. So I would rely on the director and, just kind of seeing what the animation looked like and having them tell me what's really going on here. So that's, obviously he's different from, say, Izzy.
Right.
And obviously he's different from, I can never remember the name of the character that I did for Bebop, Cowboy Bebop. But that character took me to a very different place. Very different place. I mean, so much of what I've done, I don't know how to explain it. It transports you.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So the approach is different. How is this character moving? How is this character relating to the other characters, that I'm watching? And of course, the original animation approach is very different than anime. Because then you're creating everything here, as opposed to looking at the screen and then creating what's going on. It's tricky, and a lot of times some actors are not good at both.
Mm-hmm.
Some actors do not have the ability, just like there's a lot of outstanding on-camera actors who are really good at original animation who are not good at dubbing.
Right.
And vice versa. So I'm lucky. But then my background is theater, so I think that helped. Theater and literature. So.
And when in the Dot Hack GU series, when you came back to play the more demonic version of Kite that doesn't really talk, was that just kind of an easy thing for you to do, like just make those scary noises, or?
No, the people, I talk about this in Voices for Fun, and I'm going to be doing some new ones soon. No, it is not easy to do those subverbal voices, those subverbal sounds, because it's different. Not only is it different, but each company it's different. When I do stuff for Bang Zoom, it's going to be different than when I do stuff for Studiopolis.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it has to do with the style. So it's kind of like you never take anything for granted. And you never just, I don't ever just phone it in. I have to really know what's going on.
Right.
You know, if I'm demonic and I'm going to get hit in the stomach, it's going to have a different sound than if I'm kind of more innocent and sweet, you know? So, yeah, no. In answer to your question, no. You don't ever just go, oh, this will be easy. No. If I do that, I'm kind of making an assumption and taking things for granted, and I don't ever want to do that in my work.
Mm. Well, do you remember what your thoughts were on coming back to play him in such a darker aspect?
Yes, I was excited. Well, because it was a different dimension. It's like taking something and tweaking it. I always think about, I'm a big Hobbit and Lord of the Rings fan, and as much as I love those movies, nothing beats reading the books, because I'm in charge of how those are tweaked and how much time I'm going to spend. You know, Peter Jackson spends a lot of time on a lot of killing and a lot of orcs dying until I just rewatched it. And it's great for what it is. When I read it, I can spend time visualizing different things.
Right.
And there's more subtlety. And it doesn't cost millions and millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So same thing, you know, when you have a character that's either, like doing Izzy. The difference between doing Izzy as like a 10-year-old and Izzy as a 14 or 16-year-old, 14, is different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, first of all, a young man's voice changes. And second of all, you know, Izzy's discovered girls.
Right.
So there's a whole different level. Yeah. It's fun to do characters that have changed in age or in approach to life.
Yeah, and I've watched some of your YouTube videos on how you came up with the voice for Terriermon, and it just seems like that would be such a fun show for especially somebody like you to have worked on and just be able to pull out so many voices for crazy monsters, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's fun. I like it.
Doing Doraemon was a total trip. God, I
Oh,
love
yeah.
I love Doraemon. I wish Disney had picked him again.
Yeah, I just talked to Brian Beacock, who I know was one of the main characters on that too.
It was just a fun, I mean, first of all, I love the concept.
Mm.
You know, it reminds me a little bit of Felix the Cat, but I mean, it was so imaginative. And that's what you find in so much of anime is there's different levels that some are kind of spiritual in a way. And then you also just have, I don't know, there's just more fun.
Mm.
You know, come on. He's got a pouch with a magic bag of tricks in there. So how much more fun can that get?
Mm.
Unlimited imagination.
It seems like in my opinion, it's with Doraemon specifically that you sound you sound really close to the original Japanese too.
Yeah, we did a lot of work with Mommy and with our director and with the Japanese and with the guy who was a representative from Disney. Those first few sessions were really kind of, okay, we want to nail this character. We want it to become, Americanized because it's an American audience, but we want to make sure that we are not changing so much that it loses what it is. So I felt very honored to do that, and very honored to do Chavo, because Chavo was such a iconic show. I mean, what an incredible actor that guy was. So anytime you're taking on an icon like that was established in a different country, you want to make sure that you are as accurate and still making it your own as possible. It's an honor. Yeah.
And with the dubbing of Doraemon, do you think that that's like the hardest that you might have worked in terms of trying to come up with a voice in terms of anime?
I don't really think in terms of stuff being hard.
Okay.
Certainly challenging. Certainly getting what his key line was, because key line would always help me get into character. And his key line was, "That's weird. That's really weird."
Yeah.
Because it gave you an attitude about his attitude about life. So, and that he had that curiosity that you find in kids, actually. Because he had that childlike quality. He could be, dead on and wise, but he could also be like a spoiled brat.
Right.
I love my description of him is he's it's like playing a bipolar robotic cat from a different century. There you go.
And one of the first anime that I owned that I know you had a pretty big part of as an antagonist was Ray Earth.
Oh yeah.
Ascot.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting. There's some things you remember more than others. That was good. I did not know about that show. And I remember people telling me, "Oh, wow, that's a really good show. And you're so lucky," which I was. But I learned a lot from, I learned a lot about anime from doing that show. So yeah, it was fun. Fun. So fun.
And when I talked to Richard in regards to Kenshin, was it true that you were considered to be Kenshin to match the Japanese since he was voiced by a woman? Do you remember that?
No. What did Richard say?
He said they were considering you for the lead.
Oh well. No, I do remember that happening with Dragon Guard, which I love. God, I love that part. It was great. Because they had actually ended up with a male in Japanese, I think. And then when they brought it back here the second time, I wasn't sure if I would be doing it. And I remember that was really interesting because that was the first time I had worked with the directors were in England. And, I was speaking with an English accent.
Yep.
And so it was really interesting to hear them through the headset and then see the engineer. And I guess, I don't know who else was there. Must have been a director or something. And then, of course, after that, I've done that a lot. But it was kind of like, whoa. That was, I guess, really when the internet was really getting stronger and people were beginning to explore, like, oh, we don't have to be in the same place. We're right. We can do this right here.
Yeah. And I know with Dragon Guard, too, that was one of the more darker projects that you've been a part of, just in general.
It's really interesting to do dark because, to me, it's very reflective of human life.
Yeah.
As much as I love what I do and I enjoy life, we all deal with our dark sides. And when you are in a position of power of any kind, that becomes magnified. So, and that's something, in my life, I don't have those kind of very, if I don't do this, that's going to be destroyed. If I do this, I could destroy something. I don't have those moments. So I have to, so the idea of playing something like that, it's a lot of fun.
Right.
It's just like the character from Cowboy Bebop. I guess I keep going back to that character because I've never played anything that's even close to that.
Yeah, because
Where
you were the little boy that was, or like the old man that was stuck in the.
in the little boy.
Yeah.
And so just the idea of playing a male and then a young male and then somebody who is evil but is fighting knows that probably was not the right direction. I mean, there's a lot of layers with this stuff.
Right.
And so many times people just write it off. It's like, oh yeah, it's cartoon. Yeah, no. But it's been very satisfying for me as an actor.
Right.
It's really great. I mean, I love doing stuff, I like doing stuff that's subtle, which I get a lot when I do original anime. When I do live action dubbing. But it's also really great to do, totally out there characters. So I like doing Mrs. Broflowski so much. She's totally nuts. Larger than life. So, and Doraemon, same thing.
Yeah.
And then Izzy is somebody, I mean, I know so little about computers. I mean, I can work them somewhat, but I did not grow up probably as you did with computers or with an iPhone. So playing a computer wizard I just love that. And you know the story about how we found the word prodigious, right?
Yeah, the movie October Sky, right?
I love that. I mean, it's just such a cool thing. Went home looking for what would be a good handle for him, and just the perfection and also the serendipity of going home. And that was back when you rented stuff.
Yeah.
So we rented the movie because my husband was at that time working for used aircraft and had part of designing and putting together the KU band, which was the one that Sally Ride did. So he got to meet her and stuff like that. So we were really interested in that. And the fact that, the young guy was it Gyllenhaal played? That guy went on to work for NASA.
Yeah.
It was just a whole lot of really exciting things. And then, well, we could infuse that into Izzy.
Right.
So that was cool. Yeah.
I do want to go back to Kenshin with the role that you played as Sojiro, because that's another really dark character with a contrast where he's all emotionless on the outside. He's actually one of my favorite characters in fiction, and I hadn't really seen you be asked about that before either.
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of what you said.
Oh, I just hadn't really seen you be asked about playing Sojiro before either. So.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember. Some of these things I auditioned for and then obviously when you get it, you really get into it. The hardest thing about voiceover is when you are doing the audition, you fall in love with the character and you don't get it. That's difficult. But, I was really lucky. I back in the day when they said we want a realistic boy, they meant we want a realistic boy.
Right.
Today, I'm not so sure if that's what they mean, And also they go with a lot of actual boys. So, and today, some of the young kids are really good dubbers.
Yeah, definitely. Well, because also with Kenshin, you played the younger version of Kenshin. So do you remember anything working on anything with that show?
Yes and no. I can tell you that when I've done age difference, you take the character that you start with. So if it's the young, you have to really imagine what he's gone through and work accordingly. If you've seen my videos about voice placement, that becomes very important.
Yeah. Just
like Izzy needed to keep that forward movement where the placement was, even as an older kid. Same thing, with Kenshin. If I've played him older and then have to play him younger, it's kind of like you have to go back and think, okay, so if this is the voice here and this is where the placement is here and this is what I'm doing here, what am I doing back when I'm a little one?
Right.
Am I an orphan? Have I been through loss? What does that voice sound like if it's placed higher in the mouth?
Mhm.
if it's direct fire in the mouth. Because if you're doing something low, you're doing it, this is your mouth, you're doing the placement is more here. And if you want to young that up, then it's going to be a higher placement. Make sense?
Mhm.
And then you layer that with what's going on in your life.
Right.
I mean, are you alone and lost? So, if you tell me what the parameters of that character are, I can tell you how I did it.
And this
You have to
isn't
remember-
this
What?
isn't necessarily a dark character, but dark series when you were Toboe and Wolf's Rain.
Oh, I love that's another series I just freaking loved.
Yep.
It was subtle. And that one, and Mary Elizabeth was a really good director.
Mhm.
The writing was really good. But that was a very challenging character to play because he was not extreme.
Yeah.
And one of my biggest direction notes from her was playing his vulnerability
Mm.
and doing that with a voice that sounds real, and where I could hesitate if I was reading and not having to match lips, I could shape those lines in a certain way. When you are matching sync, you have to be able to do that shaping in the way the English fits into those mouths.
Right.
Very, very challenging. Doraemon was a lot easier because, well, first of all, it was years later and the technology had improved, but
Mhm.
also the more extreme a character is, the more you can get away with fudging things.
Right.
So, but when you're doing a straight on character like Toboe, can't really do that. You got to really be in that consciousness and really feel what's going on, and then match it. It's like part of me always wants to say to the outside world of entertainment, do you guys realize how hard this is?
Yep.
Do you realize what it takes to really do this and do it well? It takes a lot. It's just like people, I was just say, it's just like people who think, I have a really cute voice. You think I should do voiceover? I think you should study, take an improv class, and experiment and see if you really want to understand that you go through a lot of no's before you get a yes.
Yep.
That's what I want to say. But if you want it and you love it and it's your passion, go do it.
Mm-hmm. And there was probably, I'm not sure if you'd remember it, but I think single darkest role that you played, it was just an episodic part, kind of like in Bebop, but it was in a series called Nightwalker. You played the mom of a little boy that was possessed by a demon, and they were like killing animals, but the mom was so like enamored with wanting her son to still live in a body that she just didn't let anybody take her away or kill him.
Yeah, I do remember.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, it's hard to do stuff like that. Listen, when you put yourself in a dark consciousness, and I'm not saying all voiceover people do this, but you come home different.
Right.
You come home from a session different. And it really, since I'm not a mom, it really, gives you a chance to experience in a limited way what that's like.
Mm-hmm.
You have somebody in your life who you adore, who's your child, came out of your body, and they're doing very evil things, but yet that's still your son.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very hard. Yeah. So I those are the kind of roles I like doing, and then I'm going to get away from.
Right.
Well, because you have to be there, otherwise you're not really performing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. There was a in Moons of Madness, I played a mom who actually was trying to get her son into a place that would destroy him.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. She was totally taken over by this. Yeah. That was really rough too. It's just, but it's fun. You know, just lay out all your emotions and get behind them. It'll be lots of fun.
And this was you were only in the movie, but for the series, but do you remember being Shaoran and Card Captors?
Mm-mm.
You know, okay.
Was it a good movie?
Yeah.
Why didn't they cast me in that?
One more underrated series that I like, Carried by the Wind. You played the main character, Tsukikage.
Oh, is this a female?
It's a guy that looks like a girl.
Boy, that name sounds familiar. Tell me what the series is about.
It's set in feudal Japan, and it's like a samurai type thing, but it's not super. It's more of like a life drama. It's not a really intense action thing.
I kind of remember it. There was one. Boy, Mary Claypool wrote this. And I did it with. It was a samurai female warrior.
Okay.
With a gazillion freaking lines. But she was great. And what was great about Mary Claypool is she wrote so that you could look at the screen and just glance down at the words and it all fit.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
I can never remember. Every time I see Mary, I have to ask her, what was the name of that series? Sorry. It's been a long career, my friend.
And it says that you got to be part of Spirited Away.
Oh yeah, for 2 days. It was great. Just different little characters, different little spirits and stuff. And the interesting thing about that, which if you've watched any other interview I've done about that, you probably know, is that it started out with 2 groups of us doing the ADR, and one group didn't really know much about anime and kind of was like, what is this stuff? By lunchtime, their attitude had changed. Mm. So that was like, oh my God, this is really fabulous. Yes, it is. It's genius. Mm. And the little girl in that was fabulous. And also the Foley in that was fabulous.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. It really makes you realize how much everything comes together to make something so perfect. Wonderful film.
And you've got to be in other Studio Ghibli movies, too, I noticed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of them. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and then one, it was just a movie, but Sakura Wars.
Soccer Wars.
Sakura.
Oh, Sakura. Say it was Sakura Wars. I'm sorry.
Sakura Wars.
Sakura Wars. I can't even say it. Sakura Wars.
Yeah.
I'm sure I remember it.
Okay.
I remember Transor Z. That was the first anime series I ever did. Well, maybe it was the second. Because Harlock was, I think, the first.
That's
Transor
right.
Second. The thing I remember about Transor Z is they were giant. That's part of it, too. It depends on how long you do that series. Mm-hmm. How predominant you're in the series. You have to remember that you're looking at mostly my anime work. And there's, like, I don't know, did you know I did the voice of Crackle for Snap, Crackle, and Pop in the 90s?
Oh, like for everything?
Yeah, for all the commercials. Yeah.
Oh, wow, no, I didn't know that.
There's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You do a lot of these things, and some of them you are more memorable. Obviously, Digimon, Doraemon are more memorable. Wolf's Rain. But, some of them, you do them. They're interesting, but because I don't play a lot of games, I go on to the next project.
Right.
So, but it's always great when I get fan mail and people say, you did this character in this and it moved me. And then the reason. I got a letter from a young lady who apparently is high functioning Asperger's, or as I say, on the scale now. And I guess she was having a bit of trouble in like middle school, and she would watch Izzy, and the idea of computers was really helpful to her. And so her comment in the letter to me was how helpful that character was. And as an actor, I don't think you can get a better comment. You know, the idea that we do things that really touch people and move them. I got one the other day about somebody, you know, made it easier for them to get through their childhood because of some stuff that I had done. It's like you think, oh my God, I'm so lucky that I can, you know, this stuff can pass through me and reach out to somebody else and make a difference.
I actually have a story like that. I told this to Wendy Lee and Steve Staley when I was in 4th grade. That's around the time that I discovered the Dot Hack games, and I was playing them. And there was one night where we were just out to eat at a restaurant, me and my parents that we normally go to, and then all of a sudden, big police SWAT people came in, and they kept everybody in there until midnight because there was a guy that killed 2 people and crashed his car outside the restaurant and was fleeing on foot.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I know if I didn't have, you know, the Dot Hack games or other anime series that I was watching at that time, that I wouldn't have been able to get over it as fast as I did.
Wow. Good for you. That's a great story. Seriously.
Yeah.
You know, see, for me growing up, that was musicals. Because my childhood wasn't the happiest. And I remember just going downstairs and I'd put on a musical and I would just sing and dance and be transported somewhere else.
Right. And I do want to just generally ask if there is something that if there's like one specific thing or a lot of things that you learned from Mary Kay Bergman.
Oh, yeah. You know, it's interesting. First of all, she was such a sweetheart. The project that I have been working on and trying to sell is an adult animation project, The Adventures of Puss and Dick.
Yep.
Survivor's Guide to Relationships. Started out as a gift in the early 90s. And I had just met Mary Kay and I was trying to do this as a gift. And the point of the gift was, you know, as people become couples in relationships, and they're busy with their career and they're busy with their kids, a lot of times those couples lose contact with their intimacy, even if it's just hand holding, because you're doing all kinds of other stuff and you begin to take each other for granted. And then, you know, 10, 15 years goes by and it's like, who are you?
Right.
And so I created this gift. I still have it somewhere. It was 10 playful seduction scenarios written in recipe style. Came with a little pillow that said in embroidery, "Your love," and you could tuck like a note or a flower into it. And the seduction recipes you could actually do with your partner. And it had a very sexy song called "Let My Lips Do the Walking." And so the idea was that you would sit down with your partner for 5 minutes even and read through the recipe, just take a moment to focus on each other. And at that time I had, I figured I would get it advertised and we could sell it and produce it. And so there were 22 people who invested $1,000 in it. And I got it to the point, got all the pieces made, but I bought an ad in Cosmopolitan. I could not get it off the ground. Remember, this is the 90s. There's no internet. There's none of that stuff. There's no YouTube. And I was crestfallen. I mean, I didn't mislead anyone. They knew it was a high-risk investment. And so I think Mary Kay and I had done an episode of something together for Saban, and I'm in the valley and I'm driving somewhere and it's really hitting me how disappointing this is. And I'm crying. I'm in my car crying. And here comes Mary Kay right next to me.
Mm.
And we're at a stoplight, and she rolls down the window and says, "Mo, are you okay? Is there anything I can do?" And I said, "No, but thank you so much for asking." And so I pulled over, and I mean, she went on. But it was that moment that just helped me realize you've done the best you can. It's also the thing that kept that idea alive so that I could turn it into a series.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also the thing that helped me because she was like that when indeed we had done a benefit together in '99 in August. And our husbands had sat together. And Mary Kay had just gotten some kind of announced thing. I don't remember what it is. And she said, "Mo, you should get your agent to get you to go out for that. It's something like that. You'd be really good." She was that kind of person. Okay. She was, they've got me doing this. You'd be good at it too. But so fast forward to her death. In the hours I spent listening to her do those voices. And that is what got me through hearing those voices.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to separate it from caring about her to knowing that there was a job that had to be done and how could I honor her in doing that job. Because those first few years on South Park were very difficult, not because the people weren't terrific, but because she had made such an impression, not just as a talent, but as a human being.
Right.
And oddly enough, fast forward to now, my creative partner, one of my creative partners on this project is Mark Munley, who handled our booking and casting and is now one of the producers on South Park.
Oh.
So it's really interesting. Plus, that idea has now become an idea for an ongoing series that is very sexually inclusive and really deals with all kinds of relationships. And when I look back, I think, wow, little pieces of all the people that believed in it back then, and Mary Kay and Mark, all of that's here now. And when I get discouraged, because it takes a long time, I am not known as a writer. I'm not known as a producer. So, getting this thing off the ground, we've honed it. And I mean, we just finished working on the Bible again today, and it sounds really good and it's really readable. But, that's what keeps you going. Plus the idea that God willing, this gets on the air and does well, that everybody who invested in the original project would get double their money.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, did I know Mary Kay? I didn't know her like, we were best friends,
Mm-hmm.
but it seemed that at some very crucial times in my life, we connected.
Right.
And it's not the greatest thing to get apart because someone has died.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, if something happened to me and somebody had to take over one of my parts, I would hope it's somebody who would give it honor and respect and go on with it.
Right.
So.
And was there a certain point in time on South Park where you finally did get comfortable taking over roles that she had played?
Yeah, I mean, I was comfortable doing the roles. I wasn't so. What I would do is, this is back when we were actually going to the studio. I would go if my call time was 10 o'clock at night. I'd get there at 9:30, and everything was done in house. So I would go around and I would say hi to people, and I would bring. Mary Kay did a thing about birthdays. I have a thing about dates, and plus I would never want to do something that somebody else has, done to show affection. But I can bake. And there's a couple of things that I bake, and I bake really well. So I would bring those in, and it'd give me a chance to say hello and get to know the people that I was working with. Because otherwise, I mean, you know what it's like in voiceover. You go in, you go to the booth. You don't even, even in original animation today, you very seldom are working with a whole cast.
Yeah. So
I didn't want to feel like a stranger.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I did. And about, I would say, year 3 or 4.
Okay.
Maybe 5. I miss going into the studio, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
We do everything from home now.
Right.
But at least I get to see Mark, so that's good. And I get to hear them in my headset, so that's good.
Mm-hmm. I know that there's been a couple or a few instances in anime where you've replaced people. Is your approach to doing that always the same, or does it just depend on the character?
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking me. Are you asking me? Usually, when I've taken over parts like that, it's because somebody's not available or doesn't want to do it.
Okay, yeah.
So, you know, I mean, I remember early years of The Simpsons when they were going around when the actors wanted more money, and a word would come out, oh, well, audition for this, and I'd tell my agent, no, why shouldn't they get more money? So to my knowledge, I don't think I ever replaced anybody for that reason. So no, I would just basically, I assume if somebody wasn't available, they wanted me to match the character, or they may have decided to go a different direction.
Well, I know the main one for anime is when you took over from Patria Richard for Ryoko and Tenchi.
Yeah, that was because they weren't available.
Okay.
I'm assuming, or somebody took over and wanted to recast.
I
mean, stuff I have no power over like that.
Right.
But yeah. And then there have been times that they've hired us and paid us less.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're a whole new company, and we're just not going to pay that. We're going to pay this. I try to stay out of the politics of voiceover as much as possible. I want to go in, do the best job I can do, and be as polite and caring as possible.
Yep.
And as I tell my students, make sure you don't eat garlic the night before or that morning. Take a shower and brush your freaking teeth.
Yep.
Oh my God. Just a couple of times. And when you eat garlic the night before, you don't always know it goes through your pores. Yeah. And if you're in a session where you're doing ADR, it can be really daunting.
I do want to ask some other lead roles that you've had in anime that I hadn't seen brought up to Rose and Maiden.
Oh, I love that. That was such a cool show.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed it. Yeah. That was another one, just, very different kind of a concept. And the idea of dolls that can come to life is fascinating to me anyway. So.
And one that I'm a pretty good fan of too, Kyo Kara Maou.
Oh yeah. First of all, I love the producer on that show. And it was a great character. And once again, you've got, a whole different approach to what the West thinks about certain things as opposed to Eastern philosophy and the way they think about things.
Right.
So yeah, he was a great character. He was a great character.
What is that
show? What
is that like when you're playing a boy that is in like a loving relationship with another boy when you're voice acting?
You just kind of go with the flow, honey. Love is love. I think actually doing that character helped me in working on Adventures of Puss and Dick.
Oh, yeah.
Because one of the things we're trying to get across is the inclusivity, and that I think our real enemy is not our differences, especially if we're talking sexual differences. Being able to connect with somebody and have a real communication is wonderful. I think where our real enemy is when the material interferes with the emotional and spiritual.
Right.
And then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what color you are, what religion you are, what your sexual preference is. We all want to have enough. We all want to be able to have decent medical. We want to be able to, love whom we want to love.
Hmm.
And, you know, got a lot of people who are much more interested in making as much money as they can rather than being, you know, fair and kind. So that's what the mayor of our town is. He wants to sell off our town, and not Los Angeles, what I'm talking about in my show. Humanity Harbor. Humanity Harbor, there's a little television studio that our heroes run, and Better Bakes, which is a, think of Cheers, but it's like an outdoor place based on my favorite place out in Burbank called Base Camp High Horse Dinette. And there's a little beauty salon, and you know, basically the mayor wants to sell off the town and create a hunting lodge for exotic animals. Yeah. So, I mean, if you think about it, we have so much in common. And a lot of times we just come at things from two different ways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you know anything about Eastern philosophy, you know about yin yang.
Yep.
And you know, usually you're going to lead with either masculine or feminine. And as long as we can be open to entertaining both, that's one thing. But when we're closed-minded about anything, not going to work. And then, like I said, our common enemy, I think, is materialism. Too much. Anyway.
And in terms of anime, I am curious what the most difficult role for you has been. Was it the Cowboy Bebop role, or is there something else?
No, I think probably the Cowboy Bebop role.
Okay.
Because that really sticks out in my mind more than anything else I've ever done. Plus, I think there was only one episode.
Yep.
So it goes back to what Dawes used to tell us. He would jokingly say, well, if you can't act in a 30-second commercial, maybe you can't act.
Mm-hmm.
Which, you know, was just his way of saying, if you have a 30-second commercial, even if you have one line, you got to take that line, find that character, and make it work. And so that was, you know, when you're in a series, you get to know your character, you get to know the changes of that character. When you're a guest on something, you have to really find that character and find it quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have the luxury of sitting down at a table read. You have to just do what's there, look at what's there, depend on your director, you know, being really into it. Most of mine have been. And then making that character come alive. And when you are in a place that's dark, and it's not, I mean, we all have dark in us, you have to really project yourself.
Right.
So yeah, out of all the roles I've ever done, that and probably the role with the mother, that was,
yeah.
enough in Prince of Egypt was really hard for me. I did background on that, and partly because I'm Jewish, but when you realize, you know, what various groups of people have gone through.
Right.
It's like, it's very difficult. And you better transport yourself there. Otherwise, you know, what's the point? You're just going up and making voices. So, yeah. Yeah.
And when you
What
did,
else you got, Chris? Yeah.
what,
I said, what else you got, Chris?
when I, because that was I had never heard before about that you were the voices of Snap, Crackle, and Pop. Was that a really involved process to become the voice?
Yes. It's very hard.
Yeah.
And then the sad thing, there were three of us, and I think we did it for 3 years. Pop was, and how they described us is Pop was like, oh yeah, man, it's cool. And he was out of Chicago. Snap was kind of sweet and innocent, and I was the voice of reason. Whoa, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Come on, this will be fun. So after going over these roles over and over and over again and getting them solidified in our brains, I think we'd done them for 3 years. And then the suits decided, oh, you know, everything's more edgy. We need to make them more edgy. And I remember these kind of commercials should take 30 seconds, 30 minutes to do. Maybe you would use an hour if you had a bunch.
Mm.
and the poor guy playing Snap. And his whole thing was to be sweet. They had rewritten that character to be entirely different.
Oh.
And I could tell Pop, because I couldn't see Pop. He was on, I could hear him in my headset. And Snap had all these lines that really were not the character. And I think that's the last time. And then they went into not using voices. Or they used guy voices. I don't know. But it was fun when we did it because it was, in the beginning, there were these little fun little vignettes, and we each played what our characters had been defined as, which kind of threw me back into what it was like doing early Rainbow Bright.
Oh, yeah.
That was really fun. Those 3 characters I did were very delineated. I can tell you today, Patty O'Green, what kind of character she is, Canary Yellow, and Red Butler. I can do the voices and I can tell you the characters. And I still remember Hallmark was there, Mattel was there, our director was there, the producer was on the phone yelling at him. And it was an 8-hour plus session.
Wow.
So, but then, when people arbitrarily change things, sometimes I wish there were more people, more money people really involved in creative process, but I'm sure that's the same thing every actor wishes. In fact, our 2 lead characters in Adventures of Puss and Dick are Maya and Marcus, and they are partners in the studio, which she inherited. And she is a director, and she's very enthusiastic and loves, gets really excited, as a director should. And he's a producer, and he's very linear thinking and very good at getting the most out of a buck. So the conflict between that, once again, you've got somebody who's the darker side, in that case would be feminine.
Mm-hmm.
Not to be confused with being feminine.
Yeah.
But, he's more inner, right? He's the yang, and she's the yin. Yeah, this is what we're going to do. And so that conflict, when I talk about masculine and feminine conflict, that's what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. So having the 2 leads having those kind of extremes and dealing with the rest of the town folk is really interesting.
And then also kind of going off of the Rice Krispies.
Oh, sorry. Yes. So, yeah, Rice Krispies. So here you had a little yang. That was a little sweet crackle. Snap. I said this wrong all this time. I was Crackle. I was the voice of reason. Snap was the really kind of sweet little character, and Pop was like totally out there. I think they described him once as a surfer dude. Sorry, I had my little characters mixed up. It's been a while. It's been 20 some odd years, Chris, so before you were born.
I was just going to ask, kind of related to that, throughout your entire voiceover career, has there been a lot of experiences that were like people you were working with weren't great, or has it mostly been positive for you? Or
no, I have to say voiceover I think is very different. I think there's been a lot of support. I think sometimes understanding that people can be insecure, the idea there is to help them. I was really lucky when I started. I had heard about June Foray and Joni Gerber from Dawes. Yeah. And one of my first gigs was doing a guest shot on Smurfs. Yeah. And I remember sitting there and, here I'm in awe of all these people because they're like legends. Right. And here comes Joni Gerber. Hi, I'm Joni Gerber. And you are? And it was like, Mona Marshall, I've heard so much about you from Dawes Butler, So and you try and pass that on, Dawes always made us feel welcome and comfortable, and the greats that I knew always made us feel comfortable. So, if somebody's not quite sure, you want to kind of, help them out if you can without calling attention to it. But yeah, voiceover is pretty supportive. Mary Kay was a great example of that.
Yeah.
And I hope I do that. I try to,
Did you know? Oh, I was just gonna ask, since Tara Strong and Gray Delisle had to replace Mary too, obviously. Do you know them very well, or
No, I know uh, Strong, Tara I know. I
okay,
don't really know Gray.
okay,
Yeah. And Tara's just sweet and adorable and talented.
hmm
Can't get better than that. Yeah.
I did notice too that you have gotten the chance to be on shows like Rugrats and other like more modern, really big
Yeah.
original animation.
Yeah. They're fun. Not as much fun as when you have a whole cast
Hmm.
there, but you know. And I've looked out. I've had some really good series. Chucklewood Critters that ran all through England. That I had a chance to. I was also story editor and wrote 23 or 24 songs. Co-wrote them with my partner. It was a lot of fun. Did that with Barbara Goodson. What else? It's gone. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. I love doing stuff with Barbara. We did a lot of stuff as boys.
Yeah.
We did the Yearling together. We did this series, Chucklewood Critters. And Chucklewood Critters, they tried to sell here. It was it was right when the networks were beginning to create their own stuff.
Okay.
So it was really hard, but I learned a lot about writing and producing from Bill Hutton, who I had met when I did Chucklewood Critters specials, but also he was the producer on James Bond Jr.
Oh, yeah.
That was a trip. I love doing that show. That and oh God, Rambo.
Oh, I was gonna ask about that too because you were lead on that.
That was a fun show. This is back when they were doing 65 episodes, and you just had a ball. And you had an ensemble cast. Does
Yep.
not get better than that. Not anymore.
I was just gonna say, regards to working with Barbara Goodson, when you were, I'm not sure how well you know Mari Devon.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, because in the Night Walker role with the mom, she actually played your son.
Maury did.
Yeah.
That's so interesting because you would have thought the opposite.
Right.
Maury does some of the best moms in the world.
Yep.
So, yeah. Mom.
And in regards to all the different work that you've done on major animated movies like Monsters Inc. and is there one?
University. That was fun because I got to actually do a character.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask what the most fun you've had in one of those kind of sessions was.
Probably doing that character.
Okay.
And then she was in 2 of the trailers, so my God, that was a lot of fun. It was lots of fun. So anytime you can do a standout character on one of these things, it's wonderful.
So I guess I like to end every interview I do with asking what you would want your legacy to be in terms of your roles so far, like new fans and old fans that have known you for a long time.
You mean what I would want them to come away with?
Yeah.
I think more than anything, it's to find what your passion is in life and to embrace it. If you're a fan and you love collecting, then do that. But also make sure that you have a life that is balanced. If I were only to focus on performing, I would have nothing to draw from. If you're a fan and you can share, I think that's great.
Yep.
I think that anything, and it goes back to what I'm trying to do with my own series, I think anything that can keep us open and reaching out to one another is a positive thing. So I guess if my legacy can be to inspire people to do their passion, whatever that is, that makes me feel really good. You know, because basically I think that, you know, energy and light passes through us.
Right.
And a lot of mine, I'm fortunate, can reach a lot of people. So I hope that when I get up and do a performance, it's not only the performance, but my attitude about what I'm performing.
Right.
And how I'm performing reaches out to people in the same way. You know, care, understanding, love. Yeah.
Well, thanks. This was fun for me to get to talk to you since I've been a fan since I was, I don't know, like 8 or 9 years old.
So is this what you want to do? Do you want to go on and become an interviewer, keep doing this, or what are your goals?
Well, I mean, yeah, I would like to stick with this. I did actually go to voice acting school up here where I am,
Where?
Minneapolis.
Oh, wow. It's cold, man. Cold there.
But I was, even though I don't think it was true, something that kind of deterred me was my teacher said, like, oh, you can try applying for jobs here, but they don't really hire anybody who's like in their 20s.
They usually hire people in their 20s. What was your teacher talking about?
Right.
And perhaps that teacher needs to. Chris, if you want to do voiceover work, see if you can get into a good improv class and work on your placement.
Okay.
And study people. And if this is truly your passion, honey, don't give up. You know, one of the things when I do one-to-one sessions with people online, because of the pandemic, I have suggested hone, you know, 4 or 5 of your characters, get so that you can talk back and forth, and go find an open mic.
Right.
And start doing your characters that way. You know, it gives you a chance to practice your writing, practice your improv, and get up in front of an audience, even though it's virtual. And then one of the gals I was working with is a gamer. And so she does her characters when she games, and people love it. So now they're requesting different ones. So, you know, the thing about the internet, Chris, is you don't have to be in LA. You don't have to be in New York. You've got a wonderful thing going here. You've got fans. You know, do an adjunct. Start doing some of your characters. You know, if that's what you want to do. You know, part of that is you got to put up with a lot of no's.
Right.
I mean, one of the things that's, you know, really hard right now is that a lot of the roles that I'm auditioning for are going to people who are on camera.
Oh, okay.
You know, it is what it is. What can I do? Just keep auditioning and hoping that something lands and keep on. But don't give up. If this is what you want to do, honey, go for it with all your heart and soul. You know, you've been watching this stuff for a long time. There's a lot you know just from absorbing.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah. And, you know, if you drop me a line and, you know, want to ask a question or just need some encouragement, I will always answer you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've always thought that you and Brienne Sedal are like the queens of doing boy voices for anime.
I love Brie. She's just great. She's just great. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful people I've worked with. And certainly you've mentioned several of them today. So I feel very fortunate because I'm also working with, you know, I've gotten to work on projects, even if they're not in the room, with people I really cared about.
Yeah, right.
So.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so do I get us off or do you? Should I just press leave?
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, you've been a delight. And, you know, drop the line. Let me know how you're doing.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Okay. Bye-bye.